Bear Creek, Missouri, 1884. The dust storm hit at noon and turned the sky black as midnight, trapping Eliza Mackenzie inside her father's lakeside homestead with a stranger she'd met only an hour before, and a banker's ultimatum that would steal everything she owned. She stood with her back to the stone fireplace, hands clasped tight to hide their shaking, while the bounty hunter, named Russell Carson, checked the shutters against the howling wind. The telegram from her father's lawyer lay on the table between them, 3 weeks late, because the wires had been down, and it changed absolutely everything she thought she knew about the debt Virgil Sutton claimed she owed.
The paperwork's forged. All of it. Your father never borrowed a cent from Sutton's bank.
Russell's voice was steady, matter of fact, as he turned from the window.
I've been tracking Sutton for 8 months. He's done this to 4 other families along the railroad survey route. Calls in fake loans, seizes the land, sells it to the rail company for 10 times what it's worth.
Then why hasn't anyone stopped him?
Eliza moved toward the table, her burgundy skirts rustling.
Why hasn't the law done anything?
Because Virgil Sutton is the law in 6 counties. Sheriff's his cousin. Judge is his brother-in-law. Anyone who stands up to him ends up in jail on planted evidence, or worse.
Russell pulled off his hat and set it on the chair, running one hand through his dark hair.
I need to get you out of Bear Creek before he knows you've seen that telegram. Once the storm clears, we've got maybe 6 hours before he comes for you.
This is my home. My father built this ranch with his own hands. I'm not running.
Ma'am, with respect, your father's dead, and Sutton's the reason why. That fall from his horse wasn't an accident.
The words hung in the dusty air between them. Eliza's face went pale, but her jaw set hard.
Prove it.
I can't. Not yet. But I know Sutton's weakness. 3 years ago, he murdered a federal marshal who was investigating him. Covered it up as a hunting accident. I was the marshal's partner. I've been hunting the proof ever since.
And you came to me because
I need a partner for a cattle drive north to Fort Scott. If I can get Sutton to follow us into Kansas, I can arrest him on federal land. But I need bait. I need someone he wants badly enough to leave his protected territory.
Outside, the wind screamed like a living thing. Dust sifted through every crack in the walls, coating the furniture in a fine brown layer.
you're asking me to risk my life to help you get revenge.
I'm asking you to help me get justice and save your ranch in the process. If Sutton's in federal custody, his forgeries come to light. You get your land back free and clear.
Eliza studied him in the lamplight, taking in the hard lines of his face, the way his hand never strayed far from his gun, the haunted look that flickered in his steel blue eyes when he mentioned his dead partner.
You're not telling me everything.
No, ma'am. I'm not.
Tell me now, or get out of my house, storm or no storm.
Russell was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his vest and pulled out a folded photograph, yellowed and creased. He laid it on the table beside the telegram.
The Marshal Sutton killed was my brother. We rode together for 5 years. I watched him die in a ravine outside Joplin with a bullet in his back, and Sutton stood over him and smiled.
His voice didn't waver, but his knuckles went white on the table edge.
I've spent 3 years tracking every move Sutton makes, documenting every crime, waiting for the one moment when I could take him down legally. But if I go after him alone, he'll use his connections to bury me. I need a witness the court can't ignore. I need someone respectable, someone with ties to the community, Someone whose testimony will force the federal prosecutor to act.
And if I say no?
Then I'll leave tonight, storm or not, and you'll wake up tomorrow to find Sutton's men on your porch with eviction papers. You'll lose everything, and he'll get away with murder. One more time.
Eliza picked up the photograph, looked at the face of a man who resembled Russell, but smiled more easily.
What was his name?
Thomas. Tom.
I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Carson.
She set the photograph down gently and met his eyes.
I'll do it. Not for revenge, not for my ranch, but because my father taught me that when you see evil, you stand against it, even if it costs you everything.
Something shifted in Russell's expression, a crack in the careful armor he wore.
Thank you.
Don't thank me yet. If we're going to do this, we do it my way. I know this country better than you do. I know which trails Sutton's men watch and which ones they don't. We take my cattle, we use my route, and we leave at dawn whether the dust has settled or not.
Agreed.
The storm raged through the afternoon and into the evening. They worked by lamplight, planning the route, checking supplies, preparing the horses. Eliza moved through her home with the careful efficiency of a woman who'd learned to run a ranch alone, pulling jerky and hardtack from the pantry, rolling blankets tight, loading saddlebags with ammunition and medicine. Russell watched her with growing respect, recognizing a steel core beneath her proper exterior that matched his own determination. When full dark came, they ate a cold supper of bread and cheese, neither one talking much, both aware that come morning, everything would change.
Why bounty hunting?
Eliza asked finally, breaking the silence.
After your brother died, why not join another marshal's office?
Because the law failed him. The system's rotten from the inside in these parts. Bounty hunting lets me work outside the rules that protect men like Sutton.
That sounds like a lonely life.
It is.
He looked at her across the table, seeing the firelight catch the auburn in her hair.
What about you? Your father's been gone 4 months. You could have sold out, moved to a city, lived an easier life.
This land is who I am. My mother's buried on that hill overlooking the lake. My father cleared these fields with his own hands. Every board in this house, every fence post, every stone in that fireplace, it's all built on their love and their work. I won't surrender it to a man like Sutton just because it's hard.
Outside, the wind began to drop. The shrieking howl faded to a steady moan, then to gusts and whispers. By midnight, the storm had moved east, leaving an eerie stillness in its wake.
We should get some rest. Dawn comes early.
You take the bed. I'll sleep in the chair.
Ma'am, I've slept in worse places than a chair. You need your strength for tomorrow.
So do you. The bed's big enough for 2 if we're both respectful about it, and we'll both sleep better.
It was a practical statement, not an invitation, but something in the air between them shifted. Russell nodded slowly.
All right, but I sleep light and armed. Don't want you startled if I wake fast.
They lay down on opposite sides of the bed, fully clothed, boots on, weapons close. Eliza stared at the dark ceiling, hyper-aware of his breathing, the heat of him across the quilts, the faint scent of leather and gun oil, and something else. Something warm and male that made her pulse quicken. She'd been a widow for 2 years, married young to a man who died of fever before their first anniversary, and she thought that part of her life was over. But lying here in the darkness with Russell Carson, she felt something stir that she'd believed was buried with her husband.
Eliza? She in the warned random direction, once out her said, or her place at the time. The warned the wind stas but that the year and the trams. A stad, a lost lod spark. And the size, to the waist bone fraced in the teaching danities. A lot fire. They walded fire. A lot firely was pay for a Christ it's waffing. By Saturlios.
His voice was quiet, in the dark.
If this goes wrong tomorrow, if Sutton's men catch us, you ride north and don't look back. Get to Fort Scott and tell the federal marshal everything. Don't try to help me.
That's not how this works, Mr. Carson. We're partners now. Partners don't leave each other behind.
Russell. My name's Russell.
All right. Russell. And I meant what I said. We ride together, or we don't ride at all.
She heard him shift in the darkness, felt his hand reach across the space between them and find hers. His palm was calloused and warm, his grip careful, but firm.
Then I'm glad you're my partner, Eliza Mackenzie.
They fell asleep like that, hands linked across the quilts. Two people who'd been alone too long, finding unexpected comfort in each other's presence. Dawn came cold and clear, the sky washed clean by the storm, the lake a mirror of pale gold. They rose without speaking, moving through the morning routines with the efficiency of people who knew their lives depended on speed. Eliza changed into riding clothes, practical trousers and a split skirt over them, sturdy boots, a leather jacket against the morning chill. She braided her auburn hair tight and pinned it up, then loaded her father's rifle and checked the action. Russell saddled both horses, his big roan gelding and her smaller paint mare, tying on the packs and bedrolls, making sure everything was balanced and secure. The cattle were already restless, 50 head of prime stock that Eliza had spent a year raising. Now, their ticket to Kansas and justice.
They'll know we're gone by mid-morning. Sutton has a man who watches the road into town.
Let him watch. By the time they figure out which way we went, we'll be 20 miles north, with a day's head start.
They mounted up and drove the cattle out of the pen, moving them at a steady pace along the lake shore, avoiding the main trails. The morning was beautiful, cool and bright, the kind of day that made you forget winter was coming. But Eliza couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her back, the certainty that somewhere behind them, Virgil Sutton was already moving. They made good time through the morning, following a deer trail that wound through stands of oak and hickory, keeping the sun on their left. The cattle moved well, and Russell proved to be as good a drover as she'd hoped, reading the herd's mood, keeping them tight without pushing them into panic. Around noon, they stopped to water the stock at a creek crossing.
There's a way station about 5 miles ahead, run by a widow named Sarah Chen. She's trustworthy. We can trade for fresh supplies and rest the horses.
How well does she know Sutton?
Well enough to hate him. He tried to buy her land last year. She refused. 2 weeks later, her barn burned down. She rebuilt it herself and told him if he ever set foot on her property again, she'd shoot him.
Russell smiled for the first time since she'd met him. A quick flash of warmth that transformed his hard face.
I like her already.
They pushed on through the afternoon heat, the cattle strung out in a long line, dust rising from their hooves. The land rolled gently here, good grazing country, with scattered farms and homesteads tucked into the valleys. Eliza found herself watching Russell as they rode, noticing the easy way he sat his horse, the constant alertness in his eyes, the way his hand rested near his gun, even when he seemed relaxed. He was a man who'd lived with danger so long it had become part of him. But underneath the hard exterior, she sensed a deep core of decency. A man who'd been hurt, but hadn't let it make him cruel.
You're staring.
He said it without looking at her, but she heard the hint of amusement in his voice.
I'm trying to figure you out. You're not what I expected when you showed up at my door yesterday.
What did you expect?
Someone harder. Someone who'd forgotten how to care about anything but revenge.
Maybe I am that man. Or maybe I was, until I met you.
The words hung between them, honest and raw. Eliza felt heat rise in her cheeks.
Russell.
I know. This isn't the time. But when this is over, when Sutton's in custody, and your ranch is safe, I'd like to come back. I'd like to see if what I'm feeling right now is real, or just the danger talking.
It's real.
She said it quietly. Certainly.
I feel it too. But you're right. First, we finish this.
They reached Sarah Chen's way station as the sun dropped toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The station was a sturdy log building with a new barn, corrals, and a well. Sarah herself came out to meet them, a woman in her 40s with iron-gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Sarah greeted them warmly, recognizing Eliza and assessing Russell with one long look before nodding approval. She fed them a hot meal of stew and biscuits while they told her the plan. Her face hardened when they mentioned Sutton. Sarah told them that Sutton's men had ridden past that morning, heading north fast, and warned that they were only hours behind now. She offered to send her son with them as an extra gun, but Russell refused, not wanting to put more people at risk. They thanked her, traded for ammunition and supplies, and rode out into the gathering dusk. The night ride was tense. They pushed the cattle harder than was wise, knowing Sutton's men were close. The moon rose full and bright, turning the landscape into a silver dreamscape, beautiful and eerie. Around midnight, they heard riders behind them, distant but closing fast.
How many?
Russell asked, pulling his horse up and listening.
4, maybe 5. They're moving fast, not trying to be quiet.
They know we know they're coming. They're trying to spook us into making a mistake.
Then we don't give them one. There's a canyon pass 2 miles ahead. Narrow, with high walls. If we can get the herd through before they catch us, we can hold them off from the other side.
And if we can't?
Then, we make our stand here and hope we're better shots.
They drove the cattle hard, urging them into a trot, then a run, racing toward the canyon pass. Behind them, the riders closed in, their shouts carrying on the night air. Eliza's heart hammered in her chest, but her hands were steady on the reins. This was her land, her cattle, her future. And she'd be damned if she'd let Virgil Sutton take it without a fight. They reached the canyon mouth with minutes to spare, funneling the panicked cattle into the narrow gap between the rock walls. The sound was deafening. Hooves on stone, cattle bellowing, the echo multiplying everything. They came out the other side into a small valley, ringed with rocks, and Russell immediately turned his horse, pulling his rifle from its scabbard.
Get the cattle settled, and find cover. They'll be through in about 2 minutes.
Eliza didn't argue. She drove the exhausted cattle into a tight bunch against the far wall of the valley, then grabbed her rifle and took position behind a boulder near Russell. The riders came through the pass in single file, silhouetted against the moonlight, 4 men with guns drawn. The lead rider pulled up hard when he saw Russell and Eliza waiting. The lead man called out, identifying himself as Sutton's deputy, ordering them to surrender the cattle and come back peacefully. Russell answered calmly that they were traveling on public land with their own stock and had broken no laws. The deputy laughed, a cold sound, and said Sutton didn't care about laws. That's when Eliza recognized one of the riders, a man who'd worked for her father and been fired for theft. Her anger flared white-hot.
You're riding with the man who killed my father, Jack. How do you sleep at night?
The man called Jack shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. The man muttered something about following orders and getting paid. Russell cut him off.
Sutton murdered a federal marshal 3 years ago. I have proof. If you ride for him now, you're accessories to murder. Federal crime. Hanging offense. But if you turn around and ride back, right now, I'll make sure the prosecutor knows you weren't part of the killing.
There was a long, tense silence. Jack looked at the deputy, then back at Russell, and Eliza. Jack turned his horse and rode back through the canyon pass without another word. One of the other men followed him. The deputy and the remaining riders stayed, and the deputy's face twisted with rage. The deputy snarled that they were dead, that Sutton would hunt them to the ends of the earth. He raised his gun. Russell fired first, a single clean shot that knocked the gun from the deputy's hand. The man screamed, clutching his bleeding fingers. The last rider threw down his weapon and raised his hands.
Ride back and tell Sutton that if he wants Eliza Mackenzie or her cattle, he can come get them himself. Tell him I'll be waiting at the Kansas border with federal marshals and arrest warrants. Tell him his time is up.
The two men fled back through the pass, the deputy cradling his wounded hand. Russell and Eliza stood in the moonlight, breathing hard, the adrenaline slowly draining away.
You didn't kill him.
No. I want Sutton to stand trial. I want him to face justice for my brother, and your father, and all the others. Killing his men won't bring that.
Eliza lowered her rifle, her hands shaking now that the danger had passed.
I thought we were going to die.
So did I. But we didn't. We're still here. We're still fighting.
He reached out and pulled her close, his arms solid and warm around her. She leaned into him, letting herself take comfort from his strength, and when he tipped her chin up and kissed her, she kissed him back, with all the fear and relief and desperate hope she'd been holding inside. It was a kiss that tasted of dust and gunpowder and possibility. A kiss that promised that if they survived this, something real and lasting could grow between them. They broke apart slowly, both breathing hard, and Russell rested his forehead against hers.
When this is over, I'm not leaving. I'm staying in Bear Creek. I'm staying with you, if you'll have me.
I'll have you. But first, we finish this.
They rode through the rest of the night and into the next day, pushing north toward the Kansas border and the federal jurisdiction that would finally give them the power to bring Sutton down. The cattle were exhausted, and so were they. But they didn't stop. Around noon on the second day, they saw riders ahead, coming south to meet them. Russell tensed, his hand dropping to his gun. But then he relaxed, and a smile broke across his tired face.
Federal marshals. I sent word from Sarah's station. They came.
The marshals rode up, 3 grim-faced men with badges pinned to their vests. The lead marshal was an older man with a gray beard who greeted Russell by name and listened intently as they told their story. He examined the forged loan documents and the telegram, his face darkening. The marshal told them that Sutton had crossed into Kansas that morning with 12 armed men, clearly intent on stopping them before they could reach federal protection, and confirmed that arrest warrants had been issued. He instructed Russell and Eliza to stay with the cattle, while the marshals rode south to intercept Sutton. Russell argued, saying he wanted to be there when Sutton was arrested, but the marshal refused. The marshal explained that Russell was too personally involved, and his presence would compromise the arrest. He promised that justice would be served and ordered them to wait. The marshals rode south at a gallop, leaving Russell and Eliza alone with the cattle and their tangled emotions. They made camp in a grove of cottonwoods near a stream, too wired to sleep despite their exhaustion. Eliza sat on a fallen log, watching the water flow past, thinking about everything that had happened in the last 2 days. Russell came and sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched.
Do you think they'll get him?
Yes. Sutton's smart, but he's also arrogant. He thinks his connections protect him everywhere. He doesn't understand that federal jurisdiction changes everything.
And then what? You get your justice, I get my ranch back, and we go back to our separate lives?
Is that what you want?
No. But I don't know what you want, Russell. You've spent 3 years focused on one thing. When it's gone, when you don't have revenge driving you anymore, who are you?
He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the water.
I don't know. I've been afraid to think about it. Afraid that without the hunt, there's nothing left of me worth keeping.
That's not true. I've seen who you are these last 2 days. You're kind. You're brave. You kept your word even when it would have been easier to ride away. You chose the law over vengeance, even though it cost you. That's not a man with nothing left. That's a man worth knowing.
He turned to look at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her heart ache.
I want to be the man you see. I want to stay in Bear Creek and help you run the ranch. I want to wake up next to you every morning and know that I'm building something instead of tearing things down. But I'm scared, Eliza. I'm scared I don't know how.
Then we'll learn together. I don't know how to share my life with someone either. I've been alone so long I've forgotten what it's like to have a partner. But I want to try. With you.
He kissed her again, slower this time, sweeter. A kiss that spoke of hope instead of desperation. When they broke apart, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. They sat together in comfortable silence, waiting for the marshals to return. The riders came back at dusk, and the news was good. Sutton had been arrested along with his remaining men. The evidence Russell and Eliza provided, combined with testimony from other victims, was enough to ensure a trial. The federal prosecutor was confident of a conviction on multiple counts, including murder. The marshal returned the forged documents to Eliza and promised that the ranch title would be cleared within the week. They thanked Russell for his cooperation and asked if he planned to testify at the trial.
Yes. I'll be there.
The marshals rode out, heading back to Kansas City with their prisoner. Eliza and Russell stood together in the fading light, watching them go. The dust storm had passed completely now, leaving the air clear and cool. Stars were beginning to appear overhead, scattered across the darkening sky like diamonds on velvet.
Come back to the house with me. Stay tonight. Stay as long as you want.
Are you sure? The town will talk.
Let them talk. I'm done living my life based on what other people think I should do. My father built that ranch for our family, and I'm going to fill it with the family I choose.
They rode back together through the gathering darkness, side by side, their horses matching pace. When they reached the ranch, Eliza showed Russell where to stable his horse and where he could wash up. She made a simple supper of beans and cornbread, and they ate together at the kitchen table by lamplight. It felt natural, comfortable, as if they'd been doing this for years instead of days. After supper, Russell helped her wash the dishes, and they talked about the ranch, about what needed fixing and what could wait, about which pastures would be best for cattle, and whether she should consider buying sheep as well. It was the kind of conversation partners had, two people planning a future together. When the dishes were done and the lamp turned low, Eliza led him to the bedroom that had been her father's. It was clean and spare, with a sturdy bed and a window that looked out toward the lake.
This can be yours. Or, if you want, there's room in mine.
He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers.
I want to do this right. I want to court you properly, the way you deserve. I want the town to see that I respect you, that this isn't just about desperation or convenience. You're worth more than that.
Russell Carson, are you asking permission to court me?
Yes. If you'll have me.
I'll have you. But fair warning, I'm not a patient woman. You'd better not drag this out too long.
He laughed, a genuine sound of joy that transformed his face.
I'll keep that in mind.
He kissed her goodnight, gentle and sweet, then went to his own room. Eliza lay awake for a long time, listening to the sounds of the house settling, knowing that for the first time since her father died, she wasn't alone. The next morning dawned clear and bright, the storm completely gone. Russell was up early, already working on repairs to the barn door when Eliza came out with coffee. They worked together through the morning, falling into an easy rhythm. Around midday, a rider came from town with a telegram. It was addressed to Russell, forwarded from Kansas City. Eliza watched his face as he read it, saw the color drain from his cheeks.
What is it?
It's from the prosecutor. They found something in Sutton's papers. A letter, dated 3 years ago, right after the robbery. It's from my brother.
Your brother? I thought he died in the robbery.
So did I. But according to this letter, he didn't die that day. He was badly wounded, but he survived long enough to write to Sutton, asking for help, asking for a doctor. Sutton got the letter and ignored it. He let my brother die rather than risk exposure.
Eliza put her hand on his arm, feeling him tremble.
Russell, I'm so sorry.
The letter says he loved me. He says he was proud of me, that he knew I'd become a better man than he ever was. He asks Sutton to tell me he's sorry, that he never meant for any of this to happen. Sutton never sent it. He kept it, probably as insurance, in case he ever needed leverage. The telegram arrived too late to save my brother, but it changes everything. He didn't die hating me. He died hoping I'd find peace.
Russell sank down onto the porch steps, the telegram crumpling in his fist. Eliza sat beside him, wrapping her arms around him as he finally let himself grieve. Not just for the brother he lost, but for the 3 years he'd spent consumed by rage instead of remembering love. She held him while he cried, offering no words, just presence. Sometimes that was all anyone could offer, and sometimes it was enough. When the storm passed, he looked at her with red-rimmed eyes.
I've been so angry for so long. I thought anger was all I had left, but my brother didn't want that for me. He wanted me to find peace, to find a life worth living. I think I've found it. Here, with you.
Then stay. Build that life. Honor him by being happy.
I will. I promise.
Over the next few days, word spread through Bear Creek about what had happened. The town was divided. Some people were grateful that Sutton's corruption had been exposed. Others, who had benefited from his patronage, were angry and looking for someone to blame. There were whispers about Eliza, about how it wasn't proper for her to have a man living on her ranch, about how Russell was a bounty hunter and probably dangerous. But there were also people who came to offer support. The shopkeeper brought supplies and refused payment. The blacksmith came to help with repairs. The school teacher stopped by with a basket of preserves and a quiet word of encouragement. Slowly, carefully, Eliza and Russell began to build a place for themselves in the community. Russell was patient and respectful, always conscious of how his presence might affect Eliza's reputation. He worked hard, fixing fences and repairing buildings, proving himself useful and trustworthy. He attended church with Eliza on Sunday, standing beside her in the back pew, ignoring the stares and whispers. After the service, the preacher shook his hand and welcomed him. It was a small gesture, but it mattered. 1 week after Sutton's arrest, the land office sent official confirmation that Eliza's title was clear and all fraudulent claims had been nullified. The ranch was hers, free and clear, with no debt. That evening, Russell asked her to take a walk with him, down to the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and orange, and the reeds whispered in the breeze.
Eliza Mackenzie, I came to Bear Creek looking for revenge. I found something better. I found a reason to stop running. I found a home. I found you. I know I'm not much of a catch. I've got a hard past and an uncertain future. But I love you. I love your strength and your fire and your stubborn refusal to let anyone push you around. I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you that you made the right choice. Will you marry me?
Eliza looked at him. This haunted, kind man who had chosen love over vengeance, who had stood beside her when it would have been easier to walk away.
Yes. Yes, Russell. I'll marry you. But understand this. I'm not giving up my ranch or my independence. I'm not becoming some quiet, obedient wife. If you want me, you get all of me. Fire and all.
I wouldn't want you any other way.
He pulled a simple gold band from his pocket, a ring that had belonged to his mother. He slid it onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. They kissed there by the lake, with the town behind them and the wide-open country stretching out ahead. Eliza chose him without surrendering herself, and he chose her without asking her to change. It was a partnership built on respect and trust, forged in fire and dust, and it would last. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the first stars appeared overhead. They walked back to the ranch hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Together, the wedding took place 3 weeks later in the small church at the edge of Bear Creek. It was a simple ceremony, but the turnout surprised them both. Nearly half the town came, curious and supportive in equal measure. The preacher kept his remarks brief and practical, speaking of partnership and commitment rather than obedience and submission. Eliza wore a dress of deep blue that had belonged to her mother, altered to fit her frame. Russell stood beside her in a new shirt and vest, his hair neatly trimmed, his eyes never leaving her face. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Russell kissed her gently, and the small congregation applauded. The reception was held at the ranch, tables set up in the yard under strings of lanterns. Neighbors brought food and drink, and someone produced a fiddle. As the sun set, people danced in the grass, and for a few hours the hardships of frontier life seemed distant and manageable. Russell danced with his bride, holding her close, marveling at how his life had changed. Just a month ago, he had been riding alone, driven by hate and fury. Now he had a home, a wife, a future. The weight of vengeance had lifted, replaced by something lighter and infinitely more valuable. As the evening wore on, guests began to drift away, offering congratulations and well wishes. Finally, Eliza and Russell were alone, standing in the yard with lantern light flickering around them.
Are you happy?
More than I ever thought I could be. Are you?
Yes. I was so afraid of losing everything. My home, my independence, my father's legacy. But I didn't lose anything. I gained a partner. Someone who sees me as I am and doesn't try to change me.
I learned something these last few weeks. Revenge doesn't fill the emptiness. It just makes it deeper. But love, partnership, building something together, that's what makes life worth living.
They went inside together, closing the door on the night. The ranch was theirs now, a place to build a life, to raise children someday, to grow old together. The next morning, they woke early and got to work. There was fencing to repair, cattle to check, 100 tasks that demanded attention. But they worked side by side, comfortable in each other's presence, finding a rhythm that felt natural and right. Over the following months, the ranch prospered. Russell proved to be a skilled cattleman, and Eliza's business sense kept them profitable even in lean times. They hired 2 hands to help with the heavy work, young men grateful for steady employment and fair wages. The town continued to accept them, slowly at first, then with growing warmth. Russell's reputation as a bounty hunter faded, replaced by a new identity as Eliza's husband and a respected rancher. He attended town meetings, helped neighbors with difficult tasks, and became known as a man of his word. Eliza found herself less isolated, less burdened by the need to prove herself constantly. With Russell beside her, she could relax slightly, trusting that she had someone to share the load. She still made the business decisions, still ran the ranch with a firm hand, but now she had a partner who respected her judgment and supported her choices. One evening in late autumn, they sat together on the porch, watching the sun set over the lake. The air was cool and crisp, smelling of wood smoke and fallen leaves.
Do you ever miss it? The hunting, the chase, the danger.
Sometimes. But not the way I thought I would. I miss the clarity of it, the simplicity, but I don't miss the emptiness. I don't miss waking up alone with nothing but anger to keep me warm.
What do you think about when you're working now? What fills your mind?
You. This place. Plans for next season. Whether we should expand the herd or invest in better breeding stock. Normal things. Good things.
I never thought I'd be happy sharing my life. I was so determined to do everything alone, to prove I didn't need anyone. But this is better. Having someone to talk to plan with, to lean on, it's better.
We're lucky. Most people don't get a second chance. I could have died hunting Sutton. You could have lost everything to his schemes. But we survived. And we found each other.
Winter came, bringing snow and bitter cold. They worked together to keep the cattle fed and sheltered, to maintain the buildings, to stockpile supplies. The ranch felt secure and solid, a fortress against the elements and the uncertainties of frontier life. On Christmas Eve, they invited their hands to share dinner with them. It was a small gathering, but warm and convivial. Russell carved the roast while Eliza served vegetables and fresh bread. They toasted with cider, and someone sang a carol in a rough but heartfelt voice. After the hands left, Russell and Eliza sat by the fire, wrapped in blankets, comfortable in the silence.
I have something for you.
He handed her a small wooden box, crudely carved but polished to a soft shine.
Did you make this?
Yes. I'm not much of a craftsman, but I wanted to give you something I made with my own hands.
She opened the box and found a delicate silver locket inside. Old but well cared for.
It was my mother's. The only thing of hers I kept. I want you to have it.
Russell, I can't. This is too precious.
You're my family now. It belongs with you.
She fastened the locket around her neck, feeling the weight of it settle against her skin. Then she kissed him, a kiss full of gratitude and love.
I have something for you too.
She handed him a leather-bound journal, the pages blank and waiting.
I thought you might want to write things down. Your memories, your thoughts, plans for the ranch, a record of this life we're building.
Thank you. I'll treasure it.
They sat together in the firelight, content and at peace. Outside, snow fell softly, blanketing the ranch in white. The world felt quiet and safe, and for the first time in years, both of them felt truly at home. Spring came eventually, bringing new challenges and new opportunities. They welcomed a small herd of new calves, repaired damage from winter storms, and planted a vegetable garden behind the house. Eliza discovered she was pregnant in early summer, and the news filled them both with joy and apprehension. Russell became fiercely protective, insisting she rest more and take on fewer physical tasks. She tolerated his concern with good humor, knowing it came from love rather than a desire to control her. As her belly grew, the town woman warmed to her even more, offering advice and hand-me-down baby clothes. The midwife visited regularly, reassuring them both that everything was progressing normally. One warm evening, in late summer, they sat on the porch, watching fireflies dance over the lake.
Are you scared?
Terrified. I've faced down armed men without flinching, but the thought of being a father scares me more than anything.
You'll be wonderful. You're patient and kind. You'll teach our child to be strong and honest.
I hope so. I want to give our child the life I never had. Safety, stability, a home where love matters more than survival.
We'll do it together. Just like everything else.
The baby came in September, a healthy boy with dark hair and his mother's fierce eyes. They named him Thomas, after Eliza's father. Russell held his son for the first time with trembling hands, overcome with emotion he couldn't put into words. Eliza watched her husband cradle their child and knew she had made the right choice. This man, once driven by vengeance and rage, had transformed into a loving partner and father. Together, they had built something precious and enduring. As Thomas grew, the ranch prospered. They added more land, improved their stock, and became known throughout the region for quality cattle and fair dealing. Russell trained young men in ranching skills, passing on his knowledge generously. Eliza managed the finances with skill and foresight, ensuring they remained profitable even in difficult years. Their partnership became a model for others, proof that a marriage could be based on mutual respect and shared labor. Years passed, bringing more children, more challenges, more growth. But through it all, Russell and Eliza remained united, partners in every sense. They had started with nothing but determination and a shared crisis. They built an empire on trust, love, and hard work. On their 10th anniversary, they stood together by the lake where Russell had proposed. Thomas, now 9, played with his younger siblings nearby. The ranch stretched out behind them, prosperous and solid.
Do you ever regret it? Choosing me over an easier life?
Never. Not once. You gave me partnership when I expected to face everything alone. You chose love over hate. That's not an easy choice. It's the hardest choice. But it's the right one.
I found my redemption in you. In this place. In our family. I stopped being the man I was and became the man I wanted to be.
We saved each other. That's the truth of it. I saved you from vengeance. And you saved me from loneliness.
They kissed, long and sweet, while their children played and the sun set over the water. Behind them, the ranch stood solid and enduring, a testament to what two people could build when they chose love over fear, partnership over isolation, hope over despair. The life they created together was hard-won and precious, forged in dust storms and danger, sealed by trust and commitment. It was a life worth living, a legacy worth leaving, a love worth fighting for. And as the stars came out overhead, Russell Carson and Eliza Mackenzie stood together, hand in hand, grateful for the choices that led them to this moment, this place, this life. Together. The telegram arrived on a Tuesday morning in late spring, delivered by a young courier who rode hard from town. Eliza was in the garden with their daughter Sarah when Russell brought it to her, his face grave. She wiped her hands on her apron and took the yellow paper, reading quickly. Her father's former business partner in St. Louis had died, leaving Russell a substantial sum of money and a detailed confession. The partner had been the one who falsified the documents that ruined Russell's family. He had worked with Virgil Sutton, taking payment to destroy the Carson name. The confession cleared Russell completely and named others involved in the conspiracy. It was vindication, years too late.
How do you feel?
Relieved. Angry. Grateful. I don't know. For so long, I thought it was just Sutton. Now, I know it went deeper, wider. But the man who started it all is dead. There's no one left to confront.
Does that bother you?
No. It would have once. But I've built something here that matters more than revenge. This changes nothing about our life. It just closes a door I thought would always be open.
That evening they sat on the porch and watched the sunset together, as they did most nights. The ranch was quiet, the children in bed, the animals settled. Russell held Eliza's hand and felt a peace he had never expected to find.
I was thinking about the day we met, the dust storm, how trapped and desperate we both were.
I thought you were going to rob me.
I thought you were going to shoot me.
I almost did.
I'm glad you didn't.
Me too.
They laughed together, the easy laughter of people who had weathered storms and come out stronger. The telegram sat on the table inside, its message already fading in importance. What mattered was here, now. The life they had built together through determination and love. Russell had come to Bear Creek hunting a villain. He found a partner instead. Someone who saw past his anger to the man beneath. Eliza had been alone, carrying the weight of her father's legacy without help. She found someone willing to stand beside her, not in front of her or behind her, but beside her as an equal. Together they had faced down corruption, rebuilt a ranch, raised a family, and created something lasting. The dust storm that brought them together was long past, but the bond it forged remained unbreakable. As the stars emerged one by one overhead, Russell pulled Eliza closer. She rested her head on his shoulder, feeling safe and loved. They had both been broken when they met, both struggling under burdens too heavy to carry alone. Together they had healed, grown, and built a life neither could have imagined. The choices they made in that dust storm, when the world went dark and truth had nowhere to hide, had led them here, to this porch, this ranch, this family, this love. It was more than either had dared to hope for, and it was enough. It was everything. The night deepened around them, but they stayed where they were, holding each other, grateful for every moment, every choice, every step that brought them together. And as the wind whispered through the reeds down by the lake, carrying the scent of grass and water and home, they knew they had found what they were looking for all along. Not revenge, not vindication, not escape, but partnership, love, and a place to belong. Together, she almost shot the bounty hunter who saved her ranch from a corrupt banker. In 1884, Bear Creek, Missouri, a dust storm traps widowed ranch owner Eliza McKenzie with haunted bounty hunter Russell Carson, just as a corrupt town patriarch moves to steal her land with forged paperwork. What begins as desperate survival becomes an unlikely partnership when Russell chooses to help her fight back instead of pursuing his vendetta. With federal marshals, gunfights, and a race against time, they must expose the conspiracy before losing everything. A tale of courage, redemption, and finding love when you least expect it. Subscribe for more untold stories of the Wild West. Wild West romance. 1880s frontier story. Bounty hunter romance. Ranch owner heroine. Corrupt banker villain. Dust storm western. Missouri frontier. Historical romance. Western love story. Cowboy redemption. Strong female lead. Partnership romance. Land dispute western. Federal marshal justice. Authentic old West. These de nor they're supposed between he rake dot spas. Wist around her. In this west the wind words were not her hair. Their west place where lost whiles white. And that's triced. Going like dranding a den to get out of them. I let home eyes then, all the calming in the plant or spoons the twice. The outside the bright, whatever spite, let's it us, and still rounder. And menting this foy, within a mother handfront. This place where lost and wounds white, last but wist of my end. Going straining I didn't ticket out in that thing. I also minded then, all the calming the putt, and what's flow or the striding for the rounder and can kick stranger. 1884, Bear Creek, Missouri. Eliza McKenzie stood on the porch of her father's ranch house, watching the horizon turn yellow-brown with dust. The storm was coming fast, darker than any she'd seen, and she had maybe an hour before it hit. But that wasn't what made her hand shake as she gripped the rifle. A rider was coming up the road, and she recognized the horse. It belonged to Virgil Sutton's men. Her father had died 3 weeks ago, sudden and unexpected, leaving her the ranch and a mountain of questions. Now Sutton, the most powerful man in Bear Creek, was calling in loans she'd never heard of, demanding payment with forged paperwork that looked real enough to fool a judge. She was 28, widowed 2 years ago when her husband died of fever, and she'd come home to help her aging father run the cattle operation. Now it was hers, and Sutton wanted it. The rider pulled up, but it wasn't one of Sutton's usual hands. This man was lean and hard, dressed in trail dust and worn leather, with a face that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. He dismounted slowly, hands visible, eyes scanning the porch and the rifle in her grip.
Ma'am, I'm not here to cause trouble. Name's Russell Carson. I'm looking for work and a place to wait out the storm.
You picked a bad day and a bad ranch. We're not hiring.
I can see that. But that dust storm is going to be a bad one, and I'd appreciate shelter for my horse and myself. I can pay.
Eliza studied him. He had a bounty hunter's look, dangerous but controlled, and there was something in his voice that made her hesitate. Honest desperation, maybe. Or maybe she was just tired of being alone.
Barn's that way. Storm hits, you can come to the house. But the rifle stays with me. And you stay where I can see you.
Fair enough.
He led his horse toward the barn, and Eliza watched him go, uneasy, but not quite afraid. The wind picked up, hot and gritty, and the sky continued to darken. By the time Russell returned from settling his horse, the first gusts were hitting hard, turning noon into twilight. Eliza gestured him inside, and they barely got the doors shut before the full force of the storm arrived. Dust hammered the windows, thick and choking, blotting out the world. The house creaked and groaned. Eliza lit a lamp and set it on the table, then sat down with the rifle across her lap. Russell stood near the door, respectful of her space.
You picked a strange time to come looking for work.
Wasn't planning on the storm. I've been tracking a man for 3 years. Cold Trail led me here. Figured I'd ask around town, see if anyone knew him.
Who are you looking for?
Man named Virgil Sutton.
Eliza's breath caught. She stared at Russell, and he stared back, reading the recognition in her eyes.
What do you want with Sutton?
He killed my brother, framed him for a crime he didn't commit, and watched him hang. I've been hunting him ever since.
Then, we have a common enemy. Sutton's trying to steal my ranch with forged loan documents. My father just died, and now Sutton's calling in debts that don't exist. He's the town patriarch, controls the sheriff, and I've got no proof the papers are fake.
I might be able to help with that. I've been gathering evidence on Sutton for years. I know his methods. He's done this before, in other towns. Ruins people to get what he wants, then moves on before anyone connects the crimes.
Why should I trust you?
You shouldn't. But that storm's going to last hours, and we're stuck here together. Hear me out. If you don't like what I say, I'll leave as soon as it's clear.
Eliza considered. The storm howled outside, shaking the walls. She was alone, her father dead, her ranch under threat, and no allies in sight. This stranger was dangerous, but he was also the first person who'd offered to stand against Sutton.
Talk.
Russell sat down slowly, keeping his hands on the table. Over the next hours, as the dust storm raged, Russell told Eliza everything. How Sutton had operated in Kansas, Colorado, and now Missouri. How he used forged documents, bribed officials, and planted evidence to destroy anyone who stood in his way. How Russell's younger brother had discovered Sutton's scheme in Denver and confronted him, only to be framed for theft and hanged before Russell could prove his innocence. Russell had been tracking Sutton ever since, gathering testimony, collecting evidence, waiting for the right moment. Eliza shared her own story. Her father's sudden death 3 weeks ago. The impossible loan documents that appeared days later. The sheriff's refusal to investigate. The banker's cold smile when he told her she had 1 month to pay or lose everything. Together, they realized Sutton was planning to file a railroad survey that would make Eliza's land incredibly valuable. He wanted to own it before the railroad came through. That's why he was moving now, fast and ruthless. As darkness fell and the storm finally began to ease, they made a plan. Russell had contacts with federal marshals who were already investigating Sutton for mail fraud. If they could get word to them and present the evidence together, they might have a chance. But they had to move fast. Sutton would file the fraudulent foreclosure papers within days. The next morning, with the storm past and the world washed clean, Russell rode to the nearest telegraph office, while Eliza gathered every document her father had left. When Russell returned, he brought news. The marshals were coming, but it would take 3 days. Sutton would move before then. They needed to stall him, and they needed proof he was acting illegally. Eliza had an idea. She would confront Sutton publicly, in front of witnesses, and force him to produce the original loan documents. Russell would be there, hidden, ready to intervene if things went wrong. It was risky, but it was their only shot. 2 days later, Eliza walked into the Bear Creek land office with her head high and her father's ledgers under her arm. Sutton was there, cold-eyed and confident, surrounded by his men. The room was full of townspeople conducting business. Perfect.
Mr. Sutton, I'm here to dispute your claim against my property. Show me the original loan document my father supposedly signed.
Sutton smiled, a thin, cruel expression. He told her the documents were filed with the county, perfectly legal, and she had no grounds to challenge them.
Then, let's go to the county office right now and review them together. In front of the clerk. Unless you're afraid of what we'll find.
Sutton's expression hardened. He gestured to his men, and they moved to block the door. The room went silent. That's when Russell stepped in from the back, his hand near his holster.
Federal marshals are on their way, Sutton. You can cooperate now, or face additional charges for